Hey everyone, welcome back. So today I want to talk to you all about my eyeshadows. So this is a tag video about eyeshadow palettes. And this tag video I first found through Emily Noel's channel. And she had spoke about how this was actually created by two women, Samantha March and Allie Glines. And I will leave all three of those ladies' videos in the description box. I wasn't going to do this tag. I haven't done a tag video in quite some time, but my friend Sherilyn's like, I want you to do it. I'm like, I don't know. I've decluttered my palettes so much that do people really want to hear about old palettes, things that are discontinued? Like, I don't know. She's like, yes, people want to know what you're still using. They don't care if it's discontinued. They just want to hear you. I'm like, okay, fine. Twist my arm. I will do it. So here we are. I'm going to leave all the questions in the description box below in case one of you makes videos and you want to do this tag as well. I encourage you. It's always fun to hear what people have to say about their makeup palettes and their collection. So let's get into this. And I forgot to define in the beginning what a palette is, but a palette to me is more than a quad. It's more than a quint. So at that point, we are looking at 6 shadows or more. So I didn't include some other palettes, even though technically they would be a palette. They have eyeshadows inside a compact. To me, that's a palette. But for the sake of the argument, I went with anything that was more than 6 shadows or more. So the first category is to show your newest palette. So I actually have 2 palettes because these came about to me at the same time. And so I thought I would show both of them. The Pat McGrath Labs Mothership Subliminal Platinum Bronze Palette looks like this. This is a very cool packaging, like cool as in like neat looking, really artistic packaging. And it's a 6-pan palette that looks like so. It is on the cooler spectrum. I did a makeup look using actually both of these palettes, this one, and then the Pat McGrath Labs Golden Opulence. I believe this was a limited edition. Maybe it's still available. Here's a little better look at it. These are the only Pat McGrath Labs palettes that I have. Let me show you this one again. I like these a lot. I think they're really beautiful. The price point on these is a little spendy. I love this one. This is like a good everyday kind of look. They're a little spendy, but if you can get them on sale, then that would be great. So those are the 2 newest palettes that I have, this one being a newer release, I believe this spring. Show your oldest palette. So like I said, I have done a lot of decluttering and I was trying to think, what is the first ever eyeshadow palette that I purchased? And I have decluttered that one. It was an Urban Decay limited edition holiday palette from 2013. But the second ever palette, no, maybe it was the third. I don't know, things get a little murky in the timeline. But I believe, no, you know what? This is hard because it might be my LORAC Pro palette, but you've seen that one many times. I think this might be my oldest palette to date. I don't know. It was either this palette or the LORAC Pro palette that I had purchased many moons ago. This is the Laura Mercier Artist palette. And I don't know, I think she still puts out palettes here and there. This is a great palette. In fact, I recently did a Get Ready With Me a couple weeks back using this. I love it. And I know a lot of these shades you can still buy individually, like at the counter, but it's just a really good smoky plum palette with some great everyday colors. Love this palette. Show your most expensive palette. The most expensive palette that I have is this palette right here. This is the Viseart Grand Pro Volume 1. This is $150, which is a lot of money. I'm actually wearing this palette today, so I don't know. I like the Viseart eyeshadows. This is an all matte palette, and since then they've done a couple other volumes, I think including shimmers. I don't have any, well, no, I take that back. I have a couple little shimmers from Viseart, but for the most part, all of my shadows from this brand are in the matte version. Now you can you can depot these if you don't like it in this layout, but it is kind of a neat layout. It's got the plastic cover. You can stand it up, so it's like a stand if you're an actual makeup artist and use it that way. But yeah, this is the definitely by far the most expensive palette I own. Show your most affordable palette. Honestly, I don't have any drugstore eyeshadows really right now. The most affordable palette I have is this one. This is the Emily Edit the Needs palette with Revolution, and I looked it up this morning. This is on clearance for $9. on Makeup Revolution's website. This is an all-encompassing palette. You have a bronzer, a blush, highlighter. This is like a matte under-eye setting powder, or it could be an eyeshadow. And then you have 6 shadows here. This is great. This is a great traveling palette because really it's going to create an everyday makeup look. And I don't know about you, but when I'm traveling, if I put makeup on, it just needs to be really simple and not colorful, or it's just not gonna be anything extravagant. So this is a great little palette. I've enjoyed using this, and now that it's only $9, like if you need a palette to travel with and you don't want to spend a ton of money on it, you don't want to worry about it getting damaged or broken or lost or who knows all the things that can happen when you travel, just pick this up. It's great. It also has a functional large mirror on it, meaning you can actually use this to put makeup on and see what you're doing. It's not like one of those fun mirrors that makes you look all kinds of crazy. Show your everyday palette. This was hard for me because I don't reach for the same palette every time. In fact, I on purpose reach for something different every single time that I sit down to do my makeup. So for me, I'm like, all of my palettes could be everyday palettes, right? But I do have one that I created for travel. So this is kind of going off the beaten path with answering the question. But if you want me to be truthful and answer the question, here's the answer. I have a Z palette. And in this Z palette, I have a collection of mostly MAC, some Makeup Geek, and then 2 depotted the Balm eyeshadows. So I can create a warm eyeshadow look. I can create a cool eyeshadow look. All neutrals, all, tones of brown and cream. You have a dark black. Yeah, if you want to know specifically what's in here, let me know. We'll do a whole separate video on this because I just really wanted to answer the question. But to answer your question, I find that making your own palette of some of your favorite shades makes the best everyday palette. Show your most colorful palette. This was also difficult because I've decluttered all of my really colorful eyeshadows because I just don't wear them. I bought them thinking, oh, these are fun. I'm going to branch out and I'm going to do the lime green and I'm going to do the bright grapes. And I still wear purple, so I guess I shouldn't say that. I just don't wear really bright, colorful eyeshadow looks. I feel like those days are gone. For me, I just feel my best and I feel the most beautiful, and I'm just going to reach for a little more subdued, toned down colors. So my answer to that, once again, is a little off the beaten track, but it would be my MAC singles. These are some of the brighter shades that I've saved. I can speak, I promise. And I actually wear these. So to me, these are wearable, brighter colors, but this would be the most colorful palette that I have because I don't have an all-encompassing colorful palette. I did until I decluttered it. I guess the answer to this question would have been the Kat Von D round palette that had like an artist's palette setup. But I recently got rid of that because I just didn't reach for it. And it was such an odd shape, and I personally don't like really large palettes, which is another question here. They need to fit in a drawer, and if it can't fit in a drawer, it needs to go, because I just can't keep things that I just find cumbersome. I also didn't want to answer this question using palettes that answered another question. I tried to keep it so I was showing you a good variety of palettes. So, because some of these questions, I could keep showing you the same palette over and over again, but I really tried to branch out and find things that it wasn't just the same palette for the same answer. Show your smallest palette. The smallest palette I have is the Viseart Petite Pro. This is the original. This is the only little one that I have. But this one also makes for a good little travel palette. Now you're going to kind of be committing to just, a limited amount of looks. But I think you could still create a good variety with this. These also can be depotted if you wanted to, put them even in something even smaller or mix it with just, like a face color and a bronzer or whatnot. But this is the smallest palette that I have. These are the only shimmer shades that I have from Viseart. There are 4 shimmers and 4 mattes in this little palette, and it's a very, very compact little situation, and I think worth the price. Show your biggest palette in regards to size. And here's where, I don't like big clunky palettes. Nope. I don't care how cute it is. It has to be able to fit in my drawer. I've actually, you don't know this, but I've actually gotten rid of a lot of my makeup storage stuff because I just need more space in my house, and my house is too small to have a lot of compartments and things out displaying makeup that my cat just knocks over in the morning when he's trying to wake me up. You know, I'm trying to create more space. So the largest in regards to size palette that I have is the Revolution collaboration with Emily. Once again, it's called the Wants. I almost chose this palette for my most colorful because this does have a good variety of color in it. This is really a great palette. I mean, she did a fantastic job. You can create colorful looks, everyday looks. Yes, it's kind of larger, but it's not crazy. We're not talking like big, clunky, awkward packaging, hard, difficult to store type palettes. It's still very thin. It's stackable. It makes sense. But it is my personal largest in size palette. Show your palette with the best memory. And I was like, all of them. They all have a story as to how they arrived here in my house, in my collection. And so this was kind of a tricky one. I've already talked about these at the first question, but I had to share these palettes are my most recent memory, like the most recent memory that really made me go, wow. So these were sent to me by a subscriber. Thank you, Jean, so much. She did not need to do this. She sent me these. And so every time I use these, I think about her. And so that is a fond memory. Could also mention my friend Brittany. She sent me this. Like, I have a lot of palettes that have great memories attached to them, and I think that's awesome. And so I was like, well, how do I really choose one? But I really wanted to share these because this was the most recent memory that I had, and it was really a genuine surprise, and I was so grateful and so humbled. And so thank you once again, Jean, for even thinking about me and for sending me these very beautiful palettes. Show a palette worth the hype. First of all, I'm going to tell you I'm not one to jump in on hype. I'm one to just kind of wait it out and see what people think, maybe. Now, that being said, if it's something that catches my eye personally, like I really want to buy that, I see a need for it, I would use that, then I will go ahead and do it regardless of hype. But when we're talking something where you have several people saying this is wonderful, first I kind of side-eye. I gotta be honest, because at this point it's like we're all kind of side-eyeing some things with the direction of, you know, there being a lot of sponsored content and just, you know, this is a lot of people's jobs now. So it's like, are you getting paid to say that, or do you really like it? So I do that for a bit. But a palette that is worth the hype, and I looked this morning, it's still available because it's not a new palette. I would have to say the Modern Renaissance palette. I personally really like this palette. I think it's a great palette. Yes, you have some brighter tones in here, but they're actually wearable. And I mean, if you were to take those two colors out, it's a very neutral palette. Even these darker reds are really pretty blended out in the crease. I've done quite a few different looks with this. I still love it. I really enjoy ABH eyeshadows. I have quite a few of their palettes, so I would say this is still worth the hype. Now, currently, what's worth the hype? I don't know. I haven't bought it or eyed any palettes in some time, but that one I would have to say really fits it's worth the hype. Show a palette not worth the hype. Honestly, I decluttered a whole slew of things I didn't think were worth the hype, which is why they're not even in my collection right now. And I'm like, should I mention stuff I've decluttered? No, because I think this is really corresponding to something you currently own. You still held on to that you may have regretted buying, or it just wasn't as good as you thought it was going to be. And so I kind of labored over this because, like I said, everything that I have I like for the most part. There's a few things I could probably live without, but as far as hype, I think, where did it go? Where are you? Oh, there it is. Natasha Denona. When these first released, there were two huge palettes, and I think the price tag was like $239 or $240 for them. And I never bought them because I'm like, how in the world can any eyeshadow be worth that price tag? So I really waited, oh my gosh, probably a few years before delving into Natasha Denona because people were talking about it left and right. And when I got this palette, I didn't pay, well, I paid for it, but I cashed in my Sephora Rouge points. So I didn't actually pay dollars. I did though, because you know points equal dollars, but you know what I'm saying. And at the time, I thought I would really get a lot of use out of this. I still like this. I still think it's pretty. I just think for me, there's too many really gold shadows in here. So that's one of the reasons I don't reach for it. Like, these are pretty and they work well with blue eyes, but this is one of those scenarios where when you're wearing that color, people notice your eyeshadow before they notice you. Like, it's just, I don't know, like you gotta feel bold that day, I guess. I like the really metallic shades. I think they're very pretty in the eye. They can be kind of messy to work with. The mattes are nice, but they're no nicer than other mattes. The price tag on these, it's very expensive. So I think I hesitate because I'm like, well, if you have the money and you don't care that there's just as good eyeshadows that are cheaper, maybe you like the color, the layout. Maybe you really are looking for a very specific super metallic eyeshadow. There's also satins in here and there's mattes. I just think that there are other eyeshadows out there that are cheaper for the price. And I think that's one of the main things that really holds me back from, you know, this not being worth the hype, is that it's just priced very high. Show your favorite palette from a favorite brand. Once again, I kind of labored over this because, you know, I love my MAC eyeshadows, but those aren't really in a palette. They're like separate. So I'm like, okay, we can't show those. I like my Makeup Geek. Those are same boat. So I'm like, okay, what palette do I have in my drawer that I really like? I like the brand. I just kind of went with Anastasia Beverly Hills. And I specifically chose this palette because this was my first introduction to Anastasia Beverly Hills, the Lavish palette. And it came like this. You guys remember this. And then she did a couple palettes that were packaged like this. And I still love this palette, mainly because these two shades right here are so gorgeous. Orange Soda and Sienna. Ballet is also really pretty. But she kind of repeated for a time some of these shadows in other palettes. So you might be able to purchase these. Now, then she came out with individual shadows, and then she started doing like this style. And since then, it's been a whole slew. So I kind of went with this because I like the ABH shadows. I have several different palettes. I have other palettes from other brands that I own more than one palette in from the brand. But, you know, over the course of time, formulations have gotten better. And some brands have kind of stayed mediocre. Some have fallen a little behind. And I feel like the ABH quality is still there. And I think the price point's still a little bit more on the affordable spectrum, other, you know, compared to brands like Pat McGrath and Natasha Denona and Viseart. These are a little bit higher end, spendier shadows. And I feel like they've kind of stayed a little bit more middle of the road. So I feel comfortable recommending this to you. And I think you'll be satisfied. Show your most used palette. This was difficult, but once again, this could have also fallen into that category of like your oldest palette. And so whatever's my oldest is my most used because I've had it for the longest and I reached for it. So I put the LORAC Pro into this category because I've traveled with this. When I say traveled, like I would travel when my husband was deployed. So I'd be gone for months at a time. And so I would only bring a select few things. And so those things got more used over others, especially when I had a bunch of eyeshadow. But this was definitely my most used. I think this is still available. So you get, what is that, 8 shadows? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, no way, 16 shadows. So you get 8 mattes and you get 8 shimmers, all of which are on a very neutral spectrum. You can still create some colorful looks out of this though too, because you have this garnet, this purple, and this nice slate color down here. But I personally really like these shadows. I have a lot of LORAC shadows. The Mega palettes, I have a couple of those. It's a softer formula, it's a dustier formula, but I find it blends out really well and I enjoy them. So this is going to be my most used. Alright, so because I watched Emily's video, she threw in a couple extra. They're Emily's extras is what she's labeled these two categories. Show your best dupe palette. I honestly don't own any duped palettes. I own all shadows that would be something you would dupe. Does that make sense? I don't have any drugstore palettes. I don't have anything. I couldn't even answer this question. This is terrible, but I haven't bought shadow in a few years. The last eyeshadow palette that I bought, I believe, was the ABH Sultry palette, which came out a few falls ago. And so I haven't even been like watching dupe videos or seeing what the latest thing is. I'm super behind on that. But a lot of the things that I buy are things you would probably be duping. So I didn't have an answer for this. That's boring, I know. And then the last question is, what palette did you rediscover while doing this tag? And that would be this palette. Still really love this too. This is the ABH World Traveler palette. I love the colors in this one. And it contains one of my all-time favorite lid shades, which is this pink champagne color right here. Oh my gosh, you guys, it's so stunning on the lid. Oh, ooh, Morocco's a good color. Soft Peach is a really good color. I like this palette a lot. I think it's really different, and it's kind of inspiring because it's got an interesting collection of shadows. And I think this is when they were, you know, putting the shadows into like quads. So that could be a quad, that could be a quad, that could be a quad. But honestly, I dip all over the place. But kind of rediscovered this. I'm like, I should wear this tomorrow. So that is all about my eyeshadow palettes. This tag video was really fun to do. I like tag videos because it's a conversation starter, and I think that's why I enjoy watching them. And we all have different takes on things. We all have different experiences. We all have different collections, things that we've tried or not tried. And I think it's a good way to also get out what are in your drawers, get everything out. And it kind of inspires you to reuse things. So I guess that last category of what did you rediscover, it kind of reminds you, okay, maybe I need to rotate my drawer because I keep reaching for what's on top. And your husband's like that. I put away his laundry. He just grabs the same. I'm like, honey, I just folded that and put it away. You have all these other options. But he always reaches for what's on top. And so I kind of can get like that with my makeup too. So I try to like rotate my collection often. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do this video if you make videos. It was a really fun tag to do. I'd love to see the video and let me know that you did it. And I hope you guys have a fabulous rest of your day, and we'll chat again soon. Bye guys.